Hello and welcome to a Tuesday edition of the Osceola Seminole Sidelines. My name is Pat Burnham, and I am joined by Kurt Weiler and Bob Ferrante. Guys, how's it going?
Interesting times, right?
Anything going on today?
No, nothing.
Kind of boring?
Glad I had something to do.
Yeah, this is kind of sensory overload Tuesday, guys, between computer notifications, cell phone notifications, and all the beeping of construction trucks around the Moore Center this morning. I mean, I went down there to see if there was any prospects, portal prospects on campus, and there were not. I just wanted to double check. But I'll tell you what, between the notifications on the computer and the phone with everything that's going on, it's been a wild morning or a wild day already. It doesn't even seem like it should be 3 o'clock, but the news of the day so far broke about an hour ago, guys, and that was that Luke Kromenhoek, what was thought to be the heir apparent at quarterback, or the future of Florida State at quarterback, has announced that he is going to enter the portal. And, of course, I think it's important to note that just because a player enters the portal does not mean he is going to leave. But guys, with FSU knowingly and openly quarterback shopping in the portal, we know Thomas Castellanos is supposed to be here tomorrow and Caden Salter after that. Luke is in the portal. Just y'all's take. Kurt, I'll start with you when you heard it, and Bob, we'll go to you from there.
I mean, it kind of felt like, were there any players that you felt 100% good about keeping coming off a season like that? I mean, obviously Mike Norvell spoke to optimism about keeping the team together, but a 2-10 season is going to make guys reconsider that. But Luke, I would have to imagine, was pretty high on the list of guys you wanted to hold on to. I mean, it is, you don't want to downplay whether he was going to be the guy in 2025, and it seemed maybe not to be trending that way or not. I think you saw enough with a bad team around him, or a bad supporting offense around him, that you could see a path, or at least I think the three of us could all see at least somewhat of a path to him becoming the guy long term. And obviously you're right. It still could happen.
Right.
We saw a guy fully committed to another school and ended up back at Florida State last year in DJ Lundy. Weird things can happen in the portal, but that he was willing to make this move speaks to some greater issue that is definitely a problem.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know. I mean, we get, I've had some discussions online via text about this. We get upset with these kids when they go into what is a legal free agency mode, an avenue that the NCAA has created and the federal government, or the government has created for them. But we don't get upset when coaches do it, and they don't have a free agency period. And everyone's up in arms over Luke. And there's this theory going around, guys, that he and his family tried to leverage a program for $7 million or a 7-figure deal, NIL deal. And I've addressed it on Twitter. I've addressed it on our board. I don't think that's the case based off of what I understand to be the situation. I think that what probably has happened here is the communication about the quarterback situation was not handled properly, and it would not be the first time, because we saw it happen with Tramel Jones. So we all understand that money is a component of these things, but I don't think Luke Kromenhoek negotiated his way out of Florida State, and that is the crux of this 7-figure theory that's going around. And I don't think Luke would make his decision solely based on money. And my understanding was that he did not anticipate them bringing in a starting quarterback via the portal. That's my understanding. But so I'm not a 7-figure theory guy. So Bob, but I'll go to you.
I think if you do look at it, there's always the depth chart consideration with quarterbacks. Only one in theory is going to play.
Right.
I do think for Mike Norvell, he's having to map out his short-term goals and plans, his long-term goals, and plans and the finances they're required to do as such, because there is an NIL amount that you have to allocate for all of these quarterbacks, for all of the offensive linemen, for all the receivers, the linebackers, and so on and so forth. He has, I think, Luke Kromenhoek could be a good quarterback for somebody. It probably wasn't going to be Florida State in 2025. It was probably going to be a situation where he was going to be part of the puzzle for the next few years, but not that starter. And I think that's where Mike Norvell has to have that immediacy vision of, I can't miss with this quarterback decision for next season.
Well, and to me, the money thing of it all is so incongruous with Luke's entire time as a recruit. I mean, he committed so early. Florida State was his first offer, and he never wavered. Despite, I mean, Georgia came at him late, and you have to imagine Georgia, there might have been a financial element behind that, and Luke didn't consider it and kind of put on blast on Twitter, like, I'm not. So, like, it would just be so against the character of everything we've seen about him through his recruiting process. That's never what it was about for him.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, I think there's a couple of things that have happened that have made the situation kind of fluid. And listen, this program's in a much different space than it was when Luke signed and arrived on campus, right? He came here after a 13-1 season, and everybody thought this program was just going to keep on keeping on, and it did not. And it went 2-10. And there's pressure on Mike that Mike would not have had going into next year had they gone even 8-4, 9-3, something respectable. And then you add the we have to win now big layer, right? And then on top of that, you bring in a new offensive coordinator. And I don't know this to be the case, but it would not surprise me if part of Gus coming here was that he got to go shopping for his groceries. It's going to be his offense, not Mike's. They'll be similar. There's no doubt about that. Mike got to start there. But I do think where Florida State is as a program, and then bringing in Gus Malzahn, has probably changed that conversation from what that conversation was prior to the start of this season. Any thoughts? Fish, you got any thoughts?
2-10 changed everything. That's it. I mean, really, at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. The quarterback's not ready to play this year. In 2025, we could all agree or disagree on that. But he needs a guy that could come in and play at a high level and win a lot of ball games. And what I mean by win a lot, they got to win 8 games. They got to get back to a bowl game next year, and the program has to change its trajectory. I keep going back to the same thing, is that this is year to year, and this is the problem when you are bringing in a quarterback like Luke, is that your projection is really he's supposed to play his redshirt sophomore year most likely in a normal situation. But everything changed with 2-10. They were forced to play him this year at the end of the year to try to get him playing time, and what we saw is not enough for him and his career, Mike, to put it all on the line for him. And there's other guys that can get him where he needs to go. Listen, Luke can run well enough to be in this scheme. I mean, personally, him and Brock are better options than Thomas Castellanos to last an entire season. I mean, Thomas Castellanos at 5'9", 185 pounds, playing behind this line, that kid is going to be like Jordan, and that he's not going to survive a whole season behind this offensive line. The other two kids are bigger, more physical kids. I think even Brock can handle the beating that you're going to take. They put a lot that you need 2 quarterbacks, because under Gus, his guys do not make it through an entire season. I just think they need a win now. They got to win now, and I think Mike saw enough in those 2 games that he played in that he didn't feel comfortable. Now, if they went 6-6 this year, I think it's a different story. But the 2-10 changes the whole dynamics of what Mike needed for this upcoming season.
Yeah, well, Kelly's right. They need any guy who can stretch the field, and Need a guy that can run, that's for sure. Well, of course, we'll see what happens. The offensive line will certainly be different. But, yeah, listen, I think Luke gave him a guy that can stretch. Now, Kelly, you talking about with the pass game or talking about stretch the field with the entirety of his play? But, yeah, now Luke has certainly stretched the field with his arm. He does have legs, but, clearly, to your point, Fish, obviously Mike and Gus do not feel like Brock or Luke were ready to bring to be the guys that could handle the freight at quarterback because they wouldn't be going after Castellanos or Salter. But and listen, you can say what you want about Castellanos. He's one of the most exciting players. I watched their games, DC's games this year because of him. Now, I wasn't watching him to evaluate him or critique his play. I was watching him because he's fun to watch on a football field.
Exciting goes both ways with him.
Yeah,
there is some big time, like boom or bust, like with a player like him, where he'll make some crazy plays, and also, he has thrown quite a few picks and fumbled. I think fumbling is more what got him benched. But I think you can also question, was he a fit for their offense under the new regime?
Yeah, and I think to some extent that that was part of it. This has been a fluid situation because, as you guys talked about, the 2-10 season, then you bring in a new offense. Obviously, we'll have some remarkable similarities to what we've seen, but obviously it's going to have a new twist, and we're already seeing that with the type of tight ends that they're bringing in, trying to bring in via the portal, big blocking type tight ends, and we'll talk about those guys a little bit later. But yeah, listen, I don't think that I'm not surprised because I always said if they were going to go portal shopping, I've expressed this with you guys on this show. I've expressed it on the boards. I expressed it on our portal preview that we wrote on Saturday, that how was FSU bringing in Castellanos, Salter, or someone that has starting quality traits going to resonate with Luke and his family. Now we have our answer. Less than 72 hours later, we have our answer. Now, could they? What are the chances? Listen, we know that the portal just means you're in free. And I think we do need to change the name of the portal to free NCAA free agency period, because when you say enter the portal, it sounds like they're leaving, right? They're out, and that's not necessarily the case. So I will ask you guys this: is there any way that they can walk this back, or do you think this is Luke gone, is done, it's over?
I don't think it's done. And listen, what other schools have done with these kids is they've told them, listen, if you want to put your feelers out, and I know this because I've spoken to a couple other schools about this, if you want to put your feelers out, this is what we're offering. If you can do this and get this amount, we will match it. And we don't know. Mike could have had that conversation with him. Like, listen, if you feel you could get $1 million, go get it. Now, I've spoke to 2 schools today that I've already watched his film, and they're like, Fish, he's not $1 million quarterback. Sorry, I don't see it. You're talking maybe $500,000, $250,000, $400,000, but he's not going to get. They said it'd be a mistake for somebody to offer him $1 million. So if Luke can go get it, good luck. But if he only gets a handful, say he gets $300,000 or $400,000 offer, and Florida State can match that, maybe he just wants to stay, and he does pull his name out of the portal. It happens all the time where kids pull their name out of the portal. So that could be one of the things that they could have told him, hey, listen, we are going to go take another quarterback. Go check out your options. If you could get this amount of money, we'll match it. But we're not going to outbid ourselves. There's no reason for Florida State to outbid themselves for a kid that they don't believe is going to start next year. So
yeah,
I don't see anything wrong.
Yeah, I agree. I don't agree that I don't think he negotiated himself out of Florida State. Now, I know there's a theory going around, and I don't know who started it, but I've got this. I have some inside information that I think is pertinent to this situation, and I do not think that Luke Kromenhoek priced himself out of Tallahassee. I don't believe that. I think somebody is doing what they need to do on that for whatever reason, but I don't think that Luke Kromenhoek asked for $1 million. But anyway, neither here nor there. But all right, so there were some. We feel like we covered Luke effectively. We feel good about that. We want to move on to some of these other names that are in the portal.
do we want to? I guess the other question is: do you talk about the implication of this with Brock, and that this makes like if Luke is gone, it makes holding on to Brock. It feels like that much more important because if you don't hold on to Brock, then you're probably, unless you somehow manage to bring in 2 transfer quarterbacks, which feels like a really hard needle to thread, you'd be going into next year with 2. Or if you were to promote, I guess, Trevor Jackson, 3 scholarship quarterbacks.
Well, you bring up a good point because that is probably the one portal name that I was expecting to see that I have not. Like I thought he would pop up on Monday at some point trying to find a home. He has not. And, I think I've seen speculation on our board that people thought he might stay anyway, and maybe there's some truth to that. But, it's certainly, they have to – they almost have to hold on to one of these guys. And I don't know. And so I don't think you can lose both of them. Bring in Castellanos, Salter, or one of the other 10 to 12 names that between this group of people on this call have heard. And I don't think, but you certainly can't go into it with Castellanos and a true freshman quarterback. Now, you got Trevor Jackson, but he's not a scholarship quarterback. He may be next year, or he may be getting NIL compensation that's in the form of a scholarship. But still, then you're going in with a redshirt freshman that's never played before and a true freshman that's never played before. And I don't know, unless you find that rare guy in the portal who says, yeah, I'm willing to come back up, Thomas Castellanos or Caden Salter, knowing there's a good chance I'm going to get to play because it's a physical 12-game season and just a running offense. There'll be opportunities for me to play at some point. I just think 2 quarterbacks in today's era via the portal to one program, and I know there's examples. I think Fish told me on the text thread that Miami brought in 2 last year, but only 1 played, and that's going to be a story that's going to be told. So I think it's very hard. I think you almost now Brock's in a position of leverage just to be the backup. I mean, he can go ask for a raise to be the backup.
But Brock may not get a better opportunity than he has at Florida State because he's 1 play away. If Castellanos comes in, the odds of him staying healthy for a 12-game season are very slim. So he's going to play. And I've said this before, I don't think there's a bunch of coaches out there clamoring for quarterbacks on a 2-10 football team. I do think that coaches rather take. I think there is some buyer beware with taking guys that did not lead a team, and we can say it's the old line or this or that, but these guys want to see guys that are winning. And you don't see guys at UTEP getting snatched from other programs, and I've said I've liked both of them. I've told you I like Brock. I think Brock has not really gotten a fair shot. This kid's been, and he's going to stick it out. I just think I don't think these kids are going to be in high demand. I think Luke's going to find out very quickly that maybe FSU is still the best chance for him to get on the field next year, especially if they take Thomas Castellanos. If that's their guy, Luke is literally 1 injury away really quickly from being on that field. And in Gus's offense, where the quarterbacks take a lot of hits, there's a very good chance that he'll get right back on the field. So we'll see what happens.
Well, listen, if Luke's going to leave and it ends up being Castellanos, I'll be fine with that. It'll be fun to watch on Saturdays. He's a dynamic. I'll be fine. Listen, I'm going to be fine no matter who it is, really, because I don't have a choice in the matter. But yeah, we know they're awful serious about Castellanos because all the reports are that he will be in town tomorrow morning and leaving on Thursday, and then Salter is going to follow shortly thereafter. And I've been told that Salter is the number 1 guy on the board. I know, Fitz, you've got some other quarterback names. You like the guy at New Mexico and said he's on their board. I've heard Calandria from UVA is on their board. That he's in the portal. I've heard some other guys that are not in the portal. And by the way, Fish, we do take offensive linemen from UTEP at Florida State. Don't forget that. You mentioned nobody transfers from Florida State.
Yeah, how'd that work out?
2-year starter, baby. 2-year starter.
He declared for the NFL draft.
That's right. All right. So
you know how bad he is that I don't remember him getting 1 holding penalty. You know how bad you have to be to not even get a holding penalty?
We're not doing this. We don't need that. We're done talking about 2 and 10.
We're looking forward, folks. Looking forward.
We're gonna look backward a little bit.
Jesus Christ, he ain't even good enough to get a holding penalty, man. Come on.
Yeah. So, but anyway, all right. So So anyway, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But certainly, if you're not an Osceola subscriber, please go to theosceola.com and check out our portal tracking board. We have one for outgoing guys like Luke, and so we'll go through the names that have left already. And then we've got our portal prospect board, which is updated daily, and we've got several updates on defensive players from Colorado, Nebraska, Louisiana Tech, App State. We don't have as much offensive news on the portal today, but we do have some good new names from the defensive side of the ball that are talking to FSU or hearing from FSU and might have some potential visits. So please go to theosceola.com or floridastate.rivals.com and check us out. You got to be a subscriber. And listen, we had a Black Friday and a Cyber Monday sale. If you missed that, you missed a complete bargain at getting inside all of the brains that operate this website. And at $99.99 a year, it's still a great, great value, particularly when you get going on our message boards with fish and fish bits and we got Nick's Nuggets and we got all kind of things. But all right, guys, so we had some more guys in the portal. It's not just Luke. Omar Graham is in the portal, a guy that I thought needed to come back. He is FSU's best linebacker. Now, FSU is going to a 3-linebacker system, and right now only has 7 scholarship linebackers heading into the spring. And that includes Omar in a 3 linebacker alignment. You need a little bit more than 7 guys. So, I mean, you want to be at least 3 deep, I think, at every position, and maybe even 4. I mean, not saying that you can play 4 at each position, but certainly, injuries do happen. And Omar, now listen, we famously saw DJ Lundy go into the portal last year, end up back at Florida State. What were your thoughts when you all saw Omar go into the portal? Listen, we know obviously there's some Nebraska linebackers in the portal that could end up at Florida State. Stephon Thompson is one of them. But what were your thoughts when you heard Omar was in the portal, Bob?
Yeah, I think Omar is a guy that a lot of us like, just as far as somebody that they invested a lot of time in and thought his development would kind of escalate over time. I think we saw some really good games from Omar. We saw some just so-so games from him. But as far as a younger guy who cared and seemed to be, leading in that group, along with Justin Cryer, Blake Nicholson, another one that we like. Honestly, I don't know how these guys feel they fit into a 3-3-5 defense, right, and how much is that the deciding factor. I think a lot of these guys are making these decisions as far as a projection of, hey, this is a conversation I had with a coach. This is the first impression I had with a coordinator. We don't officially know who the linebacker coach is going to be in this scheme yet either. So there's a lot of question marks. If you are a linebacker right now at Florida State, you're thinking through, what does your future look like? You just don't know.
Yeah. Well, another kid, I want to ask you about this, Fish. Julian Armella entered the portal, a legacy. We got 2 legacies in the portal this time around. Lamont Green Jr. is 2, but Julian Armella came in here with a lot of hype and are highly rated, and we've lost Fish. So. But anyway, Julian Armella, guys, he was kind of an enigma. He was a tough kid. We thought he might get a shot once they moved him inside the guard. We thought that might help him in pass protection, which was really where he struggled in practice. He was a bit of a leaner. He got his shoulders over his toes, and but I think we all thought it was coming. I guess my question to you guys, and I've written about it, and I know you guys have read it, but were you surprised that they did not give him a chance in game this year to prove that maybe he was better in game than some of the guys that were struggling? And we watched him trot out a couple of guys that just could not play effective at guard.
I mean, you guys know my feeling. Yeah, I mean, Bob, you know my feeling on it. Listen, I remember when Julian got recruited, I had spoken to Coach Atkins about him. I don't believe he liked him personally as a prospect. And then when he decided to hold out and then commit later on signing day. I think it ticked him off. And I hate to say this, it does. Coaches take these kids, their actions sometimes personal. And I've seen it before, and it's just crazy. And when you don't take a liking to somebody, you're not going to be willing to work with them, work on them getting better, work on them doing the things as a coach you're supposed to do. And I think that basically it came down to a lot of that was not liking the kid and not wanting him to do well. So it's sad, but it happens. I watched enough of him in the Miami game as a freshman that, all right, yeah, he made some mistakes, but you saw enough of him that you're like, all right, this kid can play one day at Florida State. I don't believe that he was not capable of playing there. And when you look at how bad the interior linemen were, you would think that he would have got a shot, at least in some of the games. But I think there was a point of the season where he basically, I don't know if they came to agreement with the staff, maybe he came to agreement with Mike Norvell that he was going to leave anyway, and he didn't want to, play. I don't know. I mean, that's part of college football now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, it's going to be interesting because I do think he'll play somewhere. I'm just shocked that and listen, we're trying to stay away from talking about what happened on the field last year. But listen, I am surprised that for whatever reason, he did not get a chance. I mean, you trotted Keandre Jones, TJ Ferguson, Bryson Estes, who was the fourth guard? It was Rizzi. It seemed like everybody got a chance except for him. So I do think that, listen, as bad as the season was going, he probably should have put Armello on the field, and either he was going to be better than what you thought, or he was going to verify what you thought, and you're going to be able to show him on film. This is why we can't play you, but they didn't do that.
You can't question them. You can't question. Go ahead.
What's that?
What you finish what you were going to say, and then I can talk.
Oh no, we're good. We're fine to move on.
You can't question how much he loves Florida State, as well as I mean, the last moment of him as a Florida State football player is being the main guy out there trying to rip. I think he ripped one of the flags out of the turf, and Mike Norvell ripped the other out. So I mean, obviously, I think that endears him to the fan base. It seems like there is a lot of wishing him well, and feels like something like that will endear someone to a fan base.
Well, and listen, you want to see the kid have at least enough success. When he loves the program as much as he did, you'd like to see him have enough success that he feels like he can stay around and compete. Who knows? Did he get a chance to meet with Herb Hand and watch film with him and all of that? And listen, again, maybe he's the guy that turns back around. We'll see. I think he'd be more likely to end up back with the program than some of these other guys. Now, Kurt, we'll let you handle this one. But what a long, strange trip it's been. Destin Hill is in the portal. I could go on and tell you all the reasons I'm surprised by this, but I'm going to let you handle it.
I mean, it's tough for Florida State, who waited a long time for him, and we kind of saw pretty quickly in practice, like, he lived up to the hype, but he's a true freshman, and I think it can be we saw a few true freshmen contribute elsewhere this year, but as a receiver, it can be hard to make that jump. And I think we thought he was ready to be a real breakthrough guy this year, and then tore his ACL, missed the entire season. And I think your thought was, well, maybe next year, and maybe that long wait can pay off, and not in today's college football. Who knows the reasoning? But Destin apparently won't be back again. He's another. We say with everyone, I almost need to have the general caveat of, like, they could end up being back at Florida State. But it's a confusing one, because it felt like with Ja'Kai Douglas gone, is a guy who very much could have taken control of that slot role if his knee was back and feeling good again next season.
Yeah, I had him as before he got hurt as my breakout player of the year at receiver. I remember when we took those votes, and I was like, well, he's going to be the guy. We saw enough of him as his first year that he was going to be able to play. But yeah, listen, I don't know the backstory on why he got here 2 years late, and I don't know the backstory on why he's leaving. I just know that maybe this is something that was agreed upon, but if it wasn't, Florida State showed him a lot of loyalty, and I know loyalty is a dying thing, particularly in today's the era of college football with the portal NIL. But you would have certainly thought that maybe that bought them, another year. And listen, maybe it wasn't working out for both parties. I don't know. Do you guys know anything other than the fact that he jumped in the portal?
No, and I think, Florida State showed patience, to your point. I mean, there's a long relationship, David Johnson being a high school coach in New Orleans with Bryce Brown, the coach at Edna Carr that coached Destin Hill. I mean, they all go way back. I think Florida State showed a lot of patience here. That's where I think the frustration resides, because when you looked at in 2025, who can you count on at receiver on this roster who had some level of experience? You thought, well, maybe Destin could be a guy you project to plug in as a contributor at minimum. There's not a lot of guys on this receiver group that you feel really good about coming back, whereas you see a Jordan Scott, a junior college guy, and that kind of projection looks special because of size and height and catch radius. But would have liked to have seen Destin in the mix, but at this point, if he doesn't want to be here, then so be it.
Yep. All right. Well, they better have some success in the portal recruiting tight ends, because that room is getting really thin. Both Jarrell Powers, Jackson West, and Brian Courtney are all in the portal as of today. That means you have one scholarship tight end coming back, and Landon Thomas with the news that Amari Williams is moving to defense.
I think Amari's doing both. I think you count him still.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to be able to play both. Playing tight end and defensive end is a little bit different than playing receiver. Sure. And I don't know. I think he could be specialized in certain situations on one side of the ball as opposed to the other, but he's not going to be a 40 snap on defense, 40 snap on offense, guys. So listen, and right now, I really like the kid as a tight end, and where you are as a tight end group before you get into the portal. I don't know how you move him, but anyway.
You can also say, though, where they are at defensive end. You can make that same case for not having any proven guys there either. And you need two of them on the field at a time instead of you can get about with one or zero tight ends in theory.
Yeah, because I believe Fish had them down as 72 scholarship players and I believe that was before Courtney
and down to like 71 or 7. Listen,
I think it's
70. They had two more today.
I think it's 70 based on your updated number. Yeah. So anyway, interesting. Now they got to hit it. They got to hit home runs. But the only other guy that I don't know how to phrase this. I thought one of the guys that had potential to help in this defense next year that is in the portal is Tamoia Durajay. I thought this is a kid that should have played this year. I understand that for whatever reason, it just was not a good fit for either side based on what I've been told. But I think I thought maybe the coaching change might on that side of the ball might incentivize him to come back. Maybe it does, but he's in the portal for now. After that, listen, I believe guys like DeMarco Ward, Jarrell Powers, Darian Williamson, Deuce Spann, Jackson West, Byron Turner probably do have better. Lamont Green Jr. probably do have better chances to play more other places. So as far from what they bring to the table perspective, I understand why they are transferring. But do you guys have anybody else outside of Tommy Durajay that you guys thought should have probably come back, or you would still like to come back to this football team that's currently in the portal?
I don't think so, honestly. I mean, I wish these guys well, but I think there's a group of 5 program where you're going to be a better contributor and have a much more enjoyable college on-field experience. I think this team could have used Nomar Graham. I think it could have used a Destin Hill, Tomiwa for sure. I mean, we can all talk about how this is the 4th school in 4 years type of guy, but it would have been a new coaching staff. Maybe it could have been something that worked for him schematically, whether he stayed inside, moved to the edge. But yeah, I think these guys are probably going to find more playing time elsewhere in the end.
Yep.
The Omar Graham one, I didn't get to really comment on that. I wasn't real fond of him early on. I wasn't fond of the take originally, but here's a kid that put in the work and got a lot better by the end of the year. And I think that the reason Florida State struggled this year is they didn't have enough Omar. If Omar stays till his senior year, I think he's the type of person that's a leader in that locker room. And I think that's something that they need. Honestly, I don't think you could put a value on that. I'd honestly would have I would have given him a nice little package enough where he'd stay, because I just think you need program guys. He's a guy that you recruited. He's a guy that honestly was terrible in the early part of this season, and to see how far he came this year, and how he's a smart kid. He was a 4.0 student, and I think he's one of these overachievers. I think he's one of these guys that wants to be good, even though he's limited physically. And I think you need those guys in the program. I think sometimes you could overlook those type of kids in the program. And when you go back and look at teams that win championships, those are the type of kids that their senior year are barking in the locker room when they're down at halftime, and they're saying, listen, I already went through this crap. I'm not going to allow it. He's the one that's going to talk and speak up. And I just think you need more of those guys in the locker room.
Yeah, he was. I agree with you, Fish. He was a guy over the course of time proved me wrong. I didn't like the take when he first got. I didn't think it was a great take when they signed him, and he's a kid that just continued to get better and better and better as the year went on. And I think that from where Florida State is at, from a number standpoint, if he came back, I think he got to be very. If he chose not to leave to go somewhere else, like, yeah, this is free agency, folks. This is not. Portal insinuates that they're gone. This is free agency. This is happening everywhere. I know we got a lot of people on the board that were upset because they felt like he was pushing for money. Again, coaches do this all the time. We are harder on the players for doing this than we are the coaches. The players have an avenue for this. It's legal. It's within the rules. Coaches hold programs hostage all the time. We saw that happen. We see that happen every year. We saw it happen last year here. We saw it's happened in Indiana this year with Kurt Cignetti getting a pay raise above what he's accomplished at Indiana. So Omar Graham is in free agency as all these kids are, and I think you got to let it play itself out. You cannot hold it against these kids for going into what is an annual free agency period. We would all do it if we had leverage.
Now, whether there should be an annual free agency period is a different conversation for a different day. Like, if the NFL operated this way and there were only one-year deals and everything could get renegotiated every offseason, I mean, it would be chaos.
Yeah. Well, apparently Charles Lester agrees with my doubting the seven-figure theory, because we just got to note that he likes it. And now this person is projecting that Lester is gone.
No, somebody else said that. Yeah, who knows? I mean, who knows? Like I said at the start, you can't. There aren't many people who I think you can say like they are definitely staying coming off the season you just had. I think that would make everybody question things, you know.
But when you guys all before the season ended, Pat kept going. They're going to lose a lot of guys. They're going to lose a lot of guys. Really, have they really had any surprises really in this group of guys that you're like, all right, I'm shocked that this guy hit the portal there? It's not like most of the guys were probably expected to hit the portal, other than, you know, maybe Luke, maybe Omar, but really there aren't a lot of. What?
Destin surprised me.
Yeah. But I mean, look, he's gone through so much. You don't know what's going on through that kid's head. You know,
I would say that I expected more, Fish, to your point. I thought it'd be more than, what are we at, 13 right now? 13 or 15?
No, I think we're at 16.
I looked on some of these teams. They got like 25 kids that already hit the portal, 30 kids. So, I mean, they've kept some of the bleeding to a minimum. And, I mean, I think the thing is how are they going to fill all these spots? Because they're going to have a lot of you guys are going to have to learn a lot of new names in about 2 months.
We're already learning them. We got a spreadsheet built with a ton of names in it already. But listen, there are guys that I'm surprised that are not in the portal, Fish, to your point. And we'll see. Listen, we got, 18 more days of this to wallow through and figure out where it's going, because these kids get into the portal anytime between now and December 28th. So, it's not over. But, to your point, where it is right now, I thought it would be above 20. I thought it would be similar to what we're seeing at Mississippi State, which I think Mississippi State at one point, at least earlier today, was at 21 kids in the portal. So,
hey, somebody asked me if I was going in the portal, and the bad news is, I hate to disappoint you guys, I'm not going anywhere. So, you guys are stuck with me.
At some point,
nobody wants me.
Fish, at some point, At some point, trading's going to be legal. Well,
You'll get a bag of chips for me, man.
At some point, we'll find a loophole in that rule. But until then, we'll hang out with you and have fun doing it. So, all right. So we've got some updated news on potential portal additions. And I'm going to read through the list real quickly, then we can go through the list, guys. But we do know that 2 quarterbacks are expected on campus. Boston College's Thomas Castellanos, Liberty's Caden Salter. They are expected – Castellanos is expected on campus Wednesday and Thursday. I'm less certain about Salter, only that I don't think they'll be on campus at the same time. So I'm thinking probably Friday or Saturday. We are trying to confirm that. Got a bunch of important visits next Monday with James Williams, Jamari Butler, and Prince whatever from Nebraska. They're going to be here all on the same day. They're going to be all 3 be here on Monday based off reports I have read. And obviously we have submitted that with James ourselves, but he has put out that both those other guys will be coming with him for that visit. We do know that offensive lineman Marcellus Marshall from UCF will be on campus Thursday, then heading to Northwestern for an official visit. Caden Kittler, an starting offensive lineman from UCF, is at Mississippi State, or was at Mississippi State yesterday. He told me that he is coming to a visit at Florida State. He has not set a date, and I've not followed up with him today. I will later. Tight end Cody Hardy, 6'3", 275 pounds from Elon, is going to be here this weekend for an official visit. Derek Simmons, an offensive lineman from Western Carolina, is supposed to be here on a visit, we think, this weekend. Have I missed anybody, guys?
Not that I know.
Okay. And, of course, there's a ton of guys that we have talked to that have heard from Florida State. We talked to a defensive end from Colorado today who's been having some conversations with Florida State, and Dayon Hayes, who was an preseason all Big 12 performer, missed most of the season after he got hurt in the second game of the year. But you can go to theosceola.com or floridastate.rivals.com and go to our portal tracker for FSU transfer departures and transfer additions and get all the latest, who we've talked to, what they're saying, and who has been offered. There were several offers that have gone out today, including an offer to a defensive tackle from App State, Nate Johnson, and a defensive tackle from Louisiana Tech, David Belay, I believe his name is off the top of my head. But all right, so let's circle back real quickly to the quarterbacks. And do you guys think we'll get much deeper than two quarterbacks deep in this portal as far as their pool, or do you think we'll see more come? I'll start with you, Fish. You think we'll see more official visits than Castellanos and Salters?
I mean, if one of those guys doesn't decide right away, I think you will. If they're bringing them on, I'm sure they're going to put pressure on one of the two to pull the trigger. If they don't make a quick decision, one of those kids, and they say they're going to both take visits, I think you'll see other guys come in. They've got to get a quarterback. They can't. They do now. They have to be a little aggressive on this.
Yeah, there's a little pressure on them to seal the deal with one of these guys. Are you hearing anything, Fish, on Mensa from Tulane? I know he's I believe, at Duke today. I'm pretty sure that's where he's on a visit at, but I know you've brought him up on one of your board posts, and we're getting questions about him now. Do you have any idea whether Florida State's going to be interested in the Mensa kid from I wonder if he's a really smart quarterback.
I would think so.
See what I did there, Mensa?
Yeah, he is from California originally, so I'm sure some of the California schools will try to get on him. Whether it's Stanford, I know is looking for a quarterback, so one of those schools out west. I'm very high on him. I would be on him, and then I do know that they have, from one of my sources, they have contacted the kid from New Mexico, so that's always an option as well. So.
Yeah, well, I know you're impressed with him as a player. We got a question, guys, if y'all want to answer this one. Any word on the wide receiver coach? I've been so busy with the portal, I've kind of put the coaching thing to the side. But
people have been trying to connect some dots, I know.
Yeah, I mean, the guy from Iowa State, the Pauly guy, From what I've heard, they've negotiated with him, or he's been in talks with Norvell. I think also someone mentioned on one of the other sites I looked at too is like there's potential like a Hines Ward or a Taekwon Underwood, but I mean they're going to have options. It's going to be somebody that either Norvell coached with or Malzahn coached against, and that's why the guy from Iowa State makes the most sense. Gus was in the Big 12. He went against this guy. He probably saw his receivers tear up his defense once or twice, and I mean that's what it usually comes down to. It's about relationships. It's usually you could go through all these names, but you have to find that 1 degree of separation somewhere in the coaching tree that these guys have a relationship, because it's very rare. I mean, Atkins never really had a relationship with Norvell. He coached against him, though. He went against him at Tulane. And then, I think Fuller, he went against Fuller when he was at Marshall, when he was at Memphis. So that's how those relationships are usually built. It's either they coached with them or they coached against them. It's usually not the guy out of left field that there's no ties.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll take credit for Hines Ward because I'm the one that floated that name out there. I think he would be a great addition.
He's a great guy. I mean, I've met him before, and I think he would do phenomenal wherever he's at.
I hope they hire him because he owes me some inside information. I helped him out tremendously when we worked out for both worked for the Alliance of American Football. I think he owes me one. We had a situation with a employee that we both had to get involved in, and it was interesting. But anyway, Hines he's a fun guy. He loves football. I'd love to see him steal him away from Arizona State. That'd be about the only thing Arizona State's losing this year.
If Mike takes Jordan Scott and the wide receiver coach from Kenny might have some words for him.
Well, Kenny's not one short on words, that's for sure.
It ain't personal; it's business.
And right now, he has won the right to talk all he wants because he is tearing it up right now. And listen, I do think some of what he says, I didn't really like how he used to talk. It seemed like sometimes in his press conference he was preachy, but I will say this: I love his take on NIL. You know, when he in the middle of the season when he did the whole Sam Levitt. If you want to see him and Sun Devil garnet and gold for whatever, maroon and gold for next 3 years, and you're a business in the valley, you need to pony up, make sure we keep him. He's very upfront, and he handles the exits similar to what Mike does. Mike waits till after they've left before he gives the good luck message, but Kenny's been on the front end of it. But anyway, he has won the right to talk. I'll give him that. And getting a first round bye in the playoff, I don't know. I think I would have bet everything. I would have bet my house that was not going to happen. But anyway, it would be interesting to see if he's – and they got some players in the portal. It'd be interesting to see. Biscuit's in the portal, guys. Let's make Biscuits great again. Get him back here. Get him warmed up. A new offensive line coach. Maybe moving the tackle. Finally getting to where he always needed to be.
He'd fit right in at 6'2", man. He'd fit right in.
Marqueson 6'5", man. Marqueson.
No, come on. He's 6'5"?
Yeah. He's a monster.
All right. Well, then he'll definitely take him and move him to tackle.
All we need to do is put some biscuit gravy on those biscuits when he gets back to town. We got an offensive tackle. But anyway, all right. So that kind of covers the portal prospects, and you can go to theosceola.com, like I said, to read the offer stories on who they've offered today. Read our thread, message board thread with all the names that we have talked to over the course of the last 48, 72 hours and what we are hearing. Got some more good news today, guys. It's actually old news, but it was released as new news. Florida State made the hiring of offensive line coach Herb Hand official. Herb is very familiar with Gus Malzahn, coached for him at UCF, Auburn, and Tulsa, where he and Mike coached together with Gus. Herb was the offensive line coach when Gus was the OC there, and Mike was a GA. And then he's also coached for Jane Franklin at Penn State and at Vandy. I know Herb a little bit. I have two family members that combined 75 years in college football, and they both think tremendously of Coach Hand and what he is going to bring to this program. My father coached 52 years, very rarely gets fired up about a coaching hire, but he called me specifically when Herb was hired and said, you need to get over there and reintroduce yourself to him. So he likes Herb. But what are y'all's thoughts on the hire of Herb Hand, guys?
I'm excited for what Herb can bring, as well as what offensive lineman he can bring to Tallahassee. It's twofold. But no, he's developed offensive linemen just at every step of the way. Penn State, Texas, Auburn. It's a track record. It's pretty consistent. We've often talked about the need to have guys who have connections in Florida high schools too. I'm not going to say he's the best recruiter. I don't know him personally as a recruiter, but having spent 4 years at UCF, he's got some relationships there. So hopefully that's beneficial too.
Yeah. What do you think, Kurt? Sorry, Fish left us.
I mean, you can't argue with, I think, the experience of it all. I think, people will talk about, sometimes when you're dating, if you break up with somebody, the next person you date might be at the opposite end of the spectrum, might be like completely different. I think when schools fire a coach, they often look elsewhere, look in a different facet the next time. And I think that's the case here. I think we saw some good things from Alex Atkins, but there were certainly questions about his experience and jumping up to Florida State and then 2 years later becoming the offensive coordinator. I think there are no questions about Herb Hand's experience and track record. And I think that is exactly what Florida State needs right now, is the proven commodity.
Yeah. And where did you guys think this the other spots are going? Like, I was down on campus today. I did see David Johnson there. But, you got Coach Hand. You've got Gus here now. Obviously, we don't know what's happening with David Johnson specifically. There's nothing that's been said. So for right now, Tokart's his quarterback coach. Thompson's tight ends coach. David Johnson is the running backs coach. Are you guys hearing anything about how long it's going to take before we get this staff finally finalized? And do you guys think that maybe part of this is they're not done recruiting either high school wise or via the portal?
I think the recruiting component is a huge factor here. Again, it's who Mike Norvell trusts. He's got the relationship with Chris Thompson going back 20 plus years. Tokars and Johnson were at Memphis. I think he's going to use those connections. David Johnson to the Louisiana, Mississippi prospects, Tokars to quarterbacks. I think they're valuable. And let's be honest, they're under contract too. How do you handle that? Do you leave them on the field? Do you move them off the field to some title? I think these are discussions that are really important, but not a lot of clarity just yet.
Yeah.
Well, and the good thing about the new, did it start last year or the year before where like you can have a unlimited now number of guys coaching at practice? Like if you were to move guys off field or switch their position, like the only limit of like you have still the 10 listed assistants. The only limit on that is guys that can go on the road to recruit. I think like on campus wise, the even if you made someone an analyst, they can on the practice field do everything a coach can in terms of, and I think everybody was kind of already doing that. Like it was kind of the worst kept secret that the analysts were getting involved in the coaching a little bit and everyone was doing it, but you don't have to get around it anymore. If Chris Thompson were to move off field, he could still help. The same goes for Tony Tokars, the same goes for others.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course we don't know the linebacker coach yet either. So that's the other one. Has anything been released officially on Randy or JP?
Nothing official, no.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about some other. I want to get y'all's take on this. Bill Belichick to North Carolina, guys. There's a lot of talk about that. I've listened to a bunch of it last night, sitting around the house. There was more of it today. What are y'all? It is more like pro football than it ever has been before. There's no doubt about that. And a lot of people have gone from calling college. A lot of guys are just referring to it as professional football. It's what it's turned into. But what are y'all's thoughts on? What was your reaction when you heard that there was some legs to this and that it could be a fit between Belichick and North Carolina?
I've always argued that North Carolina doesn't care all that much about football in the big scheme, and that Mac was a good fit for what they needed. Honestly, if they're going to back up the truck financially, not just for Bill, but for his son, for the program, for NIL, for the for the NFL style front office, if they're going to truly back up that truck, by all means, go for it. That might make the ACC better, honestly, guys, is to have North Carolina with all that money and tradition to actually care about football. Do the alumni, do the boosters care about it? It is also another story too that I find interesting, because historically, Carolina not really into football once basketball practice starts.
What was the thing I saw today of, like, didn't he apparently submit them like a 400-page manifesto over, like, here are all the things you need to fulfill if I'm going to be your head coach? And it's like, UNC, are you really ready to do that? Like,
so he's got a writer like the bands.
Basically. Well, and I know one of the things that was reported, wasn't one of the things, I don't know if I've seen this, like, you're not going to see it confirmed till after the fact, was that like his son, Steve Belichick, will be named the head coach in waiting.
Yeah, I don't know how you do that to yourself if you're North Carolina. You don't.
A guy who's never been a head coach.
Well, and he's never coached college until this year.
Yeah.
So I mean, so I don't even know how you fathom that. But listen, people make all kind of decisions for strange reasons that I don't understand. So we'll see what happens. All right, one final question. I know we're right at about the hour mark. Most of the hand wringing with the college football playoff was about SMU and Alabama. I see both sides of the argument. I did not care. Both of them had reasons to be in the playoff. Both of them had reasons to be out. What did you guys think of the playoff brackets themselves? And do you think it's right that the 16th ranked team in the country gets in? That's Clemson as the ACC champion. Do you think the way it's bracketed, where Penn State has an easier path to the national championship game that Oregon does? I mean, it's always going to be a flawed system. Even if they came up with hard and fast rules, like we're going to expand to 16, and the SEC and Big Ten get 4 automatic spots. I mean, it's always going to be a flawed system. But what did you like about the college football playoff bracket as it's set up, and what do you not like about it, and what changes would you like to see them institute next year?
I mean, I thought it was the right choice. I think a team that it was funny how quickly the Alabama pivot became about, oh, well, I guess we're not incentivized to schedule a hard non-conference strength of schedule if strength of schedule doesn't matter. And number one, I would say Alabama did not play a hard strength of schedule. I mean, they played one power conference team, and it was Wisconsin on the road. 2, they're not in because of non-conference. They're in because they lost 2 games to 6-6 teams. One of them, they put up 3 points at a bad Oklahoma team.
Yeah.
And so I don't even factor the SMU loss to Clemson into it, because it was 9-3 versus 11-1. And yes, they played an easier schedule, but they were 2 games better in record. And beyond the fact that, I mean, Bama got a benefit of the doubt that I don't think we thought they deserved last year. We don't need to rehash that. They didn't deserve it again. If they'd gotten that 2 years in a row, and I mean, it would have killed conference championships. It would have decentralized playing conference championship games ever again. So there were many reasons why they couldn't do that, to me.
Yeah, listen, and I think the Alabama, the whole thing about we're going to take a hard look at how we schedule. I think that's crying over spilt milk. I don't respect that much at all. And as you guys well know, I pull for Alabama. They're my second favorite team.
Are they going to buy out that Florida State game? I don't know if Florida State would complain if they bought out that game.
Nobody would complain. Nobody would complain. Especially
Mike Walford just gives a call so Greg.
Yeah. Yeah. So Bob, what were your thoughts on the playoff?
So, I mean, in part, we're joking about this. Would scheduling, which we know these games are scheduled 5 or more years out in some cases, would scheduling be better if it was a little bit more availability of shifting along the way, because you saw something beneficial toward you as a CFP type program versus you're an FSU, and you're no longer really looking at a CFP type of stature. I think scheduling could be more fun if you opened it up. The only other comment I would say about this whole playoff process is I'm not sure the fans see the transparency in how these 12 teams are picked and how these 12 teams are seeded also, until that transparency is available for, I think, everybody to be seen, and not just every Tuesday night, here it is. it doesn't feel like the fans really have a good grasp on what the criteria is on how these teams are picked and slotted. And that's going to be a problem for the CFP moving forward.
Yeah, I think they've got to tell these conferences, and I don't know how you do it because there's no boss of any conference. I think what you've got to do is they've got to get their heads together and say, hey guys, whether it's 8 conference games, 9 conference games, or 10 conference games, we all got to play the same amount of conference games. I think that's one of the first solutions to weeding out some of this conversation that we're having every year. And the other thing I think they got to do is you got to get rid of the FCS games. It shouldn't count as a win towards if you want to play them, that's fine. And it can count as a win to your overall record, but a game against an FCS team, because most of the time if you get beat by an FCS team, you're not going to make the playoff anyway. But let's not count, if we're going to play them, don't count that towards the record that's accounted for in your resume. Even more so, if we're going to go for the P4s, or if you want to include the P5s in it, play 8 conference games. 3 of your other non-conference games have to be against P4, and you got to have a P5. And that way it takes everyone's playing similar schedules. There's still going to be a little bit of fluidity because a program that's great 3 years when it's scheduled, Western Kentucky, say they're on a run 3 years later, they may not be as good when they pop up on your schedule. But I do think there's some things they can do from a scheduling standpoint, mandate, that will take out some of this wiggle room, starting with everybody plays the same number of conference games. Nobody plays FCS opponents. Schedule the FCS opponents for spring. Pay them. You'll sell out the stadium. People are hungry for football. They want to see a game. They do not want to see a showcase. They don't want to see you go through practice. They want to see a game. And I think that's one of the ways you keep FCS paid, involved in your system. Also, gets you a chance to evaluate talent on your campus from a particular FCS school. But anyway, I do think there's some things, but I want to see them seed them 1 through 12, 1 through 14, 1 through 16. And it doesn't matter if you're conference champion or not. It's a matter of what your ranking is.
I didn't watch much of the selection show after
the
teams were announced. I was watching when the teams were announced. I didn't stay on for long. I stayed long enough, though, where I think I was doing something. I came back and Dan Lanning was on. It's funny that Dan Lanning, where I think Oregon was the most, you could say, screwed by how the seeding broke down, where their first game is going to be against either Tennessee or Ohio State. I laughed at, I think they asked him, what do you say to, the question of, should this have been seeded 1 through 12? You may be having the hardest path, even though you're the undefeated number 1 team. And he was like, we welcome it. We know if we came through, we will have earned it. And they asked Kirby Smart the same question. And Kirby was like, yeah, no, I think they need to reseed the 1 through 12. It's just funny how different their responses were. I mean, 2 Saban guys who are handling that totally different.
No, I was surprised that you were surprised that Saban was going to be pro Alabama.
I'm not surprised, but I'm maybe more surprised that they had him on the show, knowing that was probably going to be hard for him to.
I was a little bit surprised.
Very mad at myself for that tweet that did numbers and had a spelling error that I knew. I know the word, and I've gotten roasted a few times wrong.
Hey, if you need somebody to, well, I don't know why my little brother does this, but one of his favorite things to do in life is to read my tweets and tell me whether I've screwed up spelling. It doesn't make sense, but I didn't even know he had me on notifications. Why the hell are you listening to what I have to say? But he does. And every time I screw up a tweet, whether it's a misspelling, a comma there, didn't run on sentence, he's right on it. But anyway, it's kind of funny. But all right, guys. Well, listen, we still got some work to do, so we're gonna go. We're gonna call this a show. I don't know. Poor Nick is swimming through the portal by himself right now. He's been on there for about an hour. We'll probably have him join us on Thursday. We will be out at the Moore Center tomorrow for various things. We'll be on Portal Patrol. We'll be out there to see if we can see who is on campus tomorrow. Then I believe the coordinators meet with the media at 11:30. So we will have the first coverage and first words from Gus Malzahn and Tony White. So you can go to theosceola.com for all of that and continue to check theosceola.com for all the updated portal information. It finally started slowing down about 8 last night. Then I woke up about 2 o'clock in the morning, and somebody else had entered the portal from FSU, and I was just like, that's going to have to wait till the morning. I think Jarrell Powers jumped in around midnight. So I think that was part of it. That's one of the reasons that I didn't get it. I figured that Nick was probably up. He seems like a night owl, but I guess he was not. But anyway, so you can go to theosceola.com or floridastate.rivals.com and catch all the action from the Moore Center tomorrow, which includes visits and coordinator conversations with Gus Malzahn and Tony White as they meet with the local press for the first time. If you're not a subscriber to the Osceola YouTube channel, please hit the subscribe button now. We will be back intermittently. We're starting to do a little bit more basketball coverage now with one of our pods, and I'm sure we'll get into that, although the schedule kind of slows down a little bit in December. But we'll have basketball, obviously, but plenty of portal coverage, plenty of coaching change coverage. So check us out. Subscribe to the Osceola YouTube channel and hit that notification button. Guys, I appreciate it, and we appreciate everybody watching and listening, and we will see you on Thursday at 3 o'clock if we don't have a reason to come back before then. Y'all have a great day.